Today, I'm gonna do what has never been done before. Make a Call of Duty tier list everyone will agree with. Alright, starting with Cold War. This is a COD title that I've had my opinion change on. People were heated in the comments of my YouTube short with 2 million views of ranking every COD 3 years ago, mainly because of my Cold War ranking. And the campaign was really short, but it was still good. It introduced a couple new characters into the Treyarch universe, with Russell Adler being the best one. And I know some people love the zombies, but I'm not one of them. I think the maps and story were very lackluster, but it was saved by having great updates to the mechanics and made for a solid but not great mode. And where my opinion has changed is with its multiplayer. I was not a big fan of it at launch. I mainly played it to level up weapons for Warzone. But like COD World War II, the game became a lot better as it continued to be updated. The main issue at launch was the lack of content, which could be explained by them having less time to work on the game because of the pandemic. A lot of their work was done from home, which I think hurt their creative process. So while it still isn't perfect, it was a solid game, and I'll put it in B tier. World at War. Just hearing the music brings on a flood of nostalgia. The campaign was incredible. It showed some of the true horrors of war right out of the gate with the first mission. And it's impossible to forget the terror that ran through your body when you beat the campaign for the first time and sent you straight into zombies. That cutscene and notch-around tone freaked me out as a kid. While it may have been simple, no other Call of Duty has ever been able to create an atmosphere like World at War. The multiplayer followed suit by keeping the gore and eerie sound effects. I loved it, but it did have its problems with poor balancing being the big one. World at War was amazing. I'll put it in A tier. Modern Warfare 3. The new one. This game gets a lot of hate, but is it fully deserved? With the campaign? Yes. Yes, it was. It was another short campaign that the newer CODs are known for, but it was so much worse. Mainly because 1/3 of it was filler open combat missions. Plus, the final mission was terrible. Then they tried something new with zombies, and it was not my cup of tea. I'm a much bigger fan of round-based zombies, but I won't fault them for experimenting because that's the only way we get innovations into Call of Duty that we like. Now we move on to multiplayer, where I think it doesn't get enough credit because everyone considers it a DLC, which I agree with, but it fixed so many of the issues that we had with the previous game that made it better in every single way. Yet, people still want to give the game crap. I'll say this. It should have had new maps at launch, but getting original Modern Warfare 2 maps wasn't the worst thing. Then the good news is that Sledgehammer throughout the seasons added a bunch of brand new maps that aren't bad. All in all, this game is a mix of terrible, okay, and good, which will make me give it a C tier ranking. Warzone 3. As you're probably catching on, all the Warzones will be ranked separately from the games they're attached to. What some of you may not know is that I'm a huge fan of Battle Royale, and it was the main thing I uploaded on my channel at the beginning. I have a lot of Warzone 1 videos, but I wasn't nearly as good at making content back then. It's always rough for me to go back and watch, but you're welcome to have a good laugh. With this Warzone, I had high hopes with how they improved Modern Warfare 3. While they did improve Warzone mainly with movement in the map, it still can't hold up to Warzone 1. I still enjoy it and play it with my friends all the time, so I'll put it in B tier below Cold War. To be clear, the order of the games in each tier does matter, and we're going left to right. These videos take a lot of effort to make, so please like the video if you want to see more. Alright, we just talked about the new Modern Warfare 3. Let's talk about the original one. And the surprising thing is this one got a lot of the same criticisms as the new Modern Warfare 3, being called a DLC. Many people said it was Modern Warfare 2.5. I can't tell you how much I disagreed with that back then. The campaign was good with a great conclusion to the Modern Warfare trilogy, ending in epic fashion. It added the survival mode to Spec Ops, which was sort of Infinity Ward's version of zombies at the time. Don't get me wrong, it was fun, but it could not compare to a quality Treyarch Zombies mode. Now for the biggest reason Modern Warfare 3 was amazing, the multiplayer. A fun fact is that this is my most played multiplayer in the entire Call of Duty franchise. It toned back some of the BS from Modern Warfare 2 like grenade launchers and secondary shotguns, not that the FMG9s were better, and it added point streaks to make objectives count. Added support, and more importantly, specialist streaks, Infection, which was a super fun mode, and the face-off playlist with 1v1, 2v2, and 3v3. For a game that people considered a DLC, it sure added a lot of great things. I think this was the peak of Call of Duty in my friend group before less and less people were playing. So maybe it clouds my judgment just a little bit, but I think this game was the peak of the Modern Warfare multiplayer experience, because it had something for everyone, which is going to make me almost put it in S tier, but I can only give it an A+ because the campaign and Spec Ops don't quite hit the heights they need to make me put it there. Vanguard. Let's get straight to the point. The campaign was bad. The zombies were really bad, except for the Shinonuma remake that actually gave us some round-based zombies. But here's where I'll give Vanguard a little love. The multiplayer at launch was fun. We had 16 maps at launch, which used to be the standard, but now games like Modern Warfare 2019, Cold War, and MW 2022 always have 8 to 10 launch maps, and usually some of them are remakes. So Sledgehammer actually gave us content from the start, and the gameplay was enjoyable. But unlike typical Call of Duties that start out terrible and then slowly fix it, and by the time people quit, it's pretty fun, they instead made it worse with every single update. I always say, Vanguard multiplayer died with the incendiary grenade. I mean, just look at this nightmare. What am I even looking at? So, I don't think it's quite the worst multiplayer because there was fun at the start, but I have to put this Call of Duty in F tier. Modern Warfare 2, the one from 2009. The campaign was incredible. It had great protagonists with Captain Price and Soap, along with Roach and Ghost, that left us all traumatized from General Shepard's betrayal. And the other villain made sure to leave us with a lifelong memory of terror as well. That's just what Modern Warfare 2 did so well. Leave lasting memories across every single mode. I remember doing split-screen Spec Ops with my friends, always trying to get 3 stars. Even if it wasn't as good as zombies, it was still fun. Then I touched on the multiplayer a little bit earlier while talking about Modern Warfare 3 by saying how dumbly overpowered everything was, but that's what made it memorable. You could use whatever weapon you wanted because they were all great. The kill streaks were insanely good, and it brought us the nuke. I know for a fact every single one of you who played Modern Warfare 2 will remember where you got your first nuke exactly. I got mine while playing Domination on Quarry with my friend Gary. It gave me such a rush of adrenaline when I got it. Pretty much the same feeling as my first dunk. And even though I liked Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer a little more, Modern Warfare 2 is the first game going into S tier because the campaign and Spec Ops missions elevated over. Also, I'm doing a face reveal at 100k, so hit that button if you want to see me or just support me. I really appreciate all of you legends. COD World War II, a game that had to compete against Fortnite, which greatly hurt it. The campaign was a little generic and safe, but that didn't stop me from enjoying it because Sledgehammer got good actors and put the missions together beautifully. Then I liked what they tried doing with the zombies and bring back the horror elements that World at War had. It really shined on the first map, but the mode really couldn't stand against Treyarch zombies, which made it fall flat. Onto the multiplayer. They made the most generic, slow-paced game at launch because of the outcry against advanced movement from the previous year. So they went back to the basics, but even more basic is what they did. They had a new feature with divisions, which were done so poorly at launch, but then as you probably know, everything changed halfway into the game's life cycle with Activision switching out the Sledgehammer leads, and they fixed it all around the board. And they ended up making it a really fun game. If it launched better, people would still be talking about how good COD World War II was. But since the zombies wasn't great and the multiplayer took a while to become fun, I can only put it in the bottom of B tier with a B-. COD Ghosts. This is an interesting follow-up game because I feel like you can say similar things about it to COD World War II. The campaign was pretty good. It had a great setting in a post-apocalyptic world, and you could have had a crazy good ending if we ever got a Ghost 2. But instead, we're stuck with a cliffhanger ending. Then I loved what they tried to do with the Extinction mode. It has a lot of potential, but like the campaign, they never gave that universe another try. The one big fix they needed to make was having Extinction have more replayability, and Ghost multiplayer did some cool things with the class setup, and perks that allowed for the most customization ever. It also had the best hit detection in COD history, so it sounds like it was amazing. But sadly, the time to kill was insanely fast, paired with the biggest average size of maps ever in Call of Duty, which created the campiest COD we had ever seen up to that point. Don't worry, it will be outdone by a different game later in the video. Also, I don't want to hear any Stonehaven slander when Siege was 100 times worse. It was much bigger, with way more camp spots, uglier, and worse in every single way. And yes, I still think Stonehaven was bad, but I find it hilarious that people latch on to talking bad about that one instead of Siege. If you couldn't tell, I hate Siege with a passion. While it had some of the best DLC ever, it couldn't fix the issues like COD World War II did, so I have to put it slightly below at a C+. It could have been so much better. COD 1 to 3. I'll be quick with these 3 because I sadly didn't play COD 1 or COD 2. I've heard a lot of great things about Call of Duty 2, so I'm sure people would rank it decently. Then for COD 3, I only played the campaign, and I enjoyed it. But it can't hold a light to top tier COD campaigns, so I'd have to probably rank it in D tier. Advanced Warfare. The first jetpack Call of Duty. The campaign was very enjoyable for me. I thought Jonathan Irons' character was very good, even though I thought it was predictable that he'd become the villain. But the zombies was something else. First off, making people have to buy a DLC pack just to play zombies at all is despicable work by Activision and Sledgehammer. Was buying a $60 game not enough to be able to enjoy all the modes in the game? Just to play one map, you had to spend $75. And on top of that, it was only enjoyable for a handful of games before you realized it was the worst zombies ever created. I would rather play Shinonuma zombies on Vanguard than any single map in this game. Maybe that's a hot take, but Advanced Warfare has the worst zombies in the entire franchise, and it costs $75 just to be disappointed. Alright, rant over. Now I can talk about the first Advanced Movement multiplayer. Do I like Advanced Movement? Yes. Do I want to see it come back in the future? Yes as well. So I'm happy that they tried this out. The movement was definitely a little rough in comparison to the other two jetpack CODs, but it was still fun and increased the skill gap greatly, something I think Call of Duty lacks in general. But you know what they did? They took that increased skill gap and threw it out the window by being the first COD game to significantly increase the skill-based matchmaking. Now each lobby had an even smaller skill gap. What is the point of ranked play if public matches are the same? Then they added pay to win with supply drops. Personally, I've never paid for a supply drop or a bundle in the item shop for any single Call of Duty because I'm not giving the money to support that BS. So even though I got hundreds and hundreds of free supply drops from playtime, I never got the Obsidian Seed, Speakeasy, or any truly broken variant. But I got to enjoy going up against players with them almost every single game. So I got punished because I wouldn't give them more money. While I think some of the maps were really good and the gameplay was fun, it got hurt severely by greed and stupidity. The zombies was already going to be hurting the rank, but instead of being in the C to B range, it's going to be getting docked one letter grade for strict skill-based matchmaking and another letter grade for pay to win, sadly making me put it in D tier above COD 3. It had a lot of potential, but they added some really stupid things into the game. Black Ops 2. I don't know about you, but my mood just got a lot better. A game that nailed every single mode. The campaign brought us the best COD villain with Menendez, while keeping our beloved protagonists of Alex Mason, Frank Woods, and Jason Hudson, while also adding David Mason and Mike Harper. It gave us the first true campaign to have multiple endings. Yes, I know World at War technically has multiple endings, but not anywhere close to the same degree that Black Ops 2 does. Then the Zombies has a mixed bag. Transit was a blast to play with a party of 4 friends, but kinda sucked if you played with less. Die Rise wasn't the best, but the Sliquifire was a great wonder weapon. Side note, I'd play Die Rise before any single Advanced Warfare Zombies map, but the next 3 were incredible, with Mob of the Dead, Buried, and Origins making it one of the best zombies in all of Call of Duty. The multiplayer added the Pick 10 system, score streaks, made the best ranked mode ever, had great maps, great weapons, and didn't do anything bad. This is the easiest ranking on the list so far, and it's going in S tier above Modern Warfare 2. The only people who disagree with Black Ops 2 being in S tier either didn't play it or just want to be different. Infinite Warfare. The most hated COD. Well, at least from a reveal trailer. It got a bad rap from the start and had to fight an uphill battle the entire way. To start off, I thought the campaign was very good and the space setting allowed for missions to be in all different types of atmospheres, and it had some great characters with Nick Reyes and Ethan being the 2 best. But man, this story was a bit depressing with their disregard for the characters. I'm still sad about that final mission. Then I can't say enough about the zombies. It is by far the best non-Treyarch zombies. The theme was a little less serious, which helped it stand out. On top of the cool map locations with zombies in Spaceland, Raven the Redwoods, and Shaolin Shuffle. While it wasn't to the level of top tier zombies, it was better than the lower level Treyarch zombies. Then where this game struggled. Multiplayer. With the backlash from the trailer and the player base not wanting a 3rd straight year of Advanced Movement, it already had a serious fight to get people into trying it out. But when Activision made the community buy Infinite Warfare to get COD 4 Remastered, they ended the chance of the player base ever liking IW's multiplayer. I think Infinite Warfare had the smoothest movement of any of the jetpack CODs, but the maps, specialist weapons, and kill streaks were all worse than Black Ops 3. Many of my friends never even tried Infinite Warfare's multiplayer and only bought it to play COD 4 Remastered, which is one of the big reasons I personally have way more time played on COD 4 Remastered multiplayer than Infinite Warfare's. So while I don't think the multiplayer was the worst, it wasn't good either, which is why I can't put Infinite Warfare any higher than B tier, just above COD World War II. If you've played the game, you know it shouldn't have gotten nearly as much hate as it did. COD Mobile. I've never played it, so I can't say much about it other than I think it's cool that it combines a bunch of different Call of Duties together. Moving on to Modern Warfare 2. The one from 2022. I most likely will never hate a Call of Duty more than this one. Everything Infinity Ward did well with Modern Warfare 2019, they threw out. Everything they did wrong with MW 2019, they kept. This was the biggest pile of crap I've ever seen. There was no content at launch. The movement was terrible. Their new attachment unlock system where you had to use gun A to unlock gun G to be able to get attachment W for gun F was so stupid. And the campaign isn't bad, which is the only reason I didn't create a new tier at the bottom called MW 2022, and I'll just have to put it at the bottom of F tier underneath Vanguard. Let's just say I'm glad Infinity Ward won't be making a Call of Duty for a while, and they can have time to think and process all of their mistakes and say sorry to the community. Warzone 2.0. A very similar situation to what I just said. The movement was an even bigger problem in this, and they crafted this battle royale for absolute scrubs. People couldn't move, and the aim assist was the strongest it has ever been in any Call of Duty game. As a controller player, I actually felt bad for mouse and keyboard players. But they made a ranked mode that made it a little more fun, so that will get it bumped up to D tier underneath Advanced Warfare. Black Ops 3. The greatest jetpack Call of Duty and the greatest Call of Duty zombies ever. The multiplayer had incredible weapons with the Man of War, KN-44, VMP, Kuda, P06 Burst Sniper, and a lot more. I unlocked Dark Matter camo in this game, and it was my first mastery camo where I actually did every single camo challenge in the game. The maps were amazing because they made playing boots on the ground viable, but they also allowed for players to use wall runs and double jumps to make plays while also looking incredible with vibrant colors. The score streaks were great, and the specialists were really fun without being too overpowered. The Zombies has good to all-time great maps with no bad ones. Shadows of Evil has one of the coolest settings ever. Der Eisendrache is my favorite Black Ops 3 map, and it was great for more casual players. Zetsubu no Shima is the worst map in Black Ops 3, and it's still good. Garad Krovery is fantastic and has a dragon, which is sick. And Revelations throws together a lot of maps and is great for the story. And I know some people don't love Gobblegums because it could make it too easy with stuff like Perkaholic, but the beautiful thing is, you didn't have to use them if you didn't want to. Plus, we got Zombie Chronicles bringing back top tier maps of the past, and the PC community got unlimited maps with mod tools. So it has to go in S tier, correct? Well, train go boom. And with that, I have to move it to A tier, just below Modern Warfare 3, an amazing game still. COD 4. The game that a lot of the community got started with. It created a bunch of stuff for COD, with prestiging, camo unlocks, kill streaks, create a class, and 3-lane maps just to name some of it. While it wasn't perfect, Call of Duty would have never been able to become what it is without this game's innovations. And the campaign introduced us to legendary characters like Captain Price, McMillan, and Soap. So while I don't think it's peak Call of Duty, it's still an iconic game that deserves to go into A tier just underneath Black Ops 3. Black Ops 4. Just like COD World War II, it had to compete with Fortnite and cause Activision to force Treyarch into making a battle royale. And that will count in the ranking of BO4 because you had to buy the game to play Blackout, unlike Warzone. And that was the biggest issue with the mode. If you didn't know, Treyarch wanted to make Blackout free, but Activision wouldn't let them after forcing them to make it. Another Activision L to hurt Treyarch. And of course, this also led them to not have a campaign and only make specialist stories because they didn't have enough time and resources. For the zombies, I actually think it doesn't get enough love because the HUD and perk system weren't great. But the maps overall were good and the story was interesting. Just look at 9, Dead of Night, and Ancient Evil. Those 3 maps are better than any zombies map from Cold War. While I think Cold War had a much better HUD and perk system and overall mechanics, I prefer the better maps, characters, and story of Black Ops 4. It isn't a top-level zombies, but it was still really good. Then the multiplayer forcing you to heal yourself wasn't my favorite. It wasn't game-breaking for me, but I also wish the game didn't have specialists because they didn't have the same feel as they did in Black Ops 3. The extra health to make the time to kill slower wasn't terrible because they switched it to 5v5 instead of 6v6. Then it also had a pay-to-win element with locked weapons being better than the base weapons, where they didn't fix it until almost a year after launch. Definitely my biggest issue with the multiplayer. But even with all of this not being great, it was still the last Call of Duty to have the classic prestige system. No strict skill-based matchmaking, and the pick 10 system instead of the gunsmith. Somehow, this game played more like classic Call of Duty than every COD to come out after, which is why I'm going to be putting it in B tier underneath Cold War. It was a mixture of good and bad, with many of the issues being Activision's fault instead of Treyarch's. Modern Warfare 2019. Well, from what you heard earlier, you know it's much better than MW 2022. I like the campaign a lot, even if I wish they hadn't rebooted the story and continued it instead like the Black Ops series has done, but the multiplayer was not good. For anyone who says it brought people back to the franchise, you need to look at the facts instead of just talking. First, more people did buy Modern Warfare 2019 because of Infinity Ward announcing the Modern Warfare series was returning after 8 years, which excited the player base. This gave Call of Duty a huge resurgence at launch, but prior to Warzone and the pandemic happening in March of 2020, MW 2019 was killing Call of Duty by having the player count nearly cut in half just 2 months into the game, which if you didn't know, was the lowest point since COD blew up. So, now tell me MW 2019's multiplayer saved COD. They built the game for bad players. They wanted safe spaces, places for people to camp with a super fast time to kill, the strictest skill-based matchmaking we've seen, no red dots on the minimap, no dead silence, and doors. You know what I've never heard in the 16 years of Call of Duty before Modern Warfare 2019? I wish these maps had some doors. That would make them play so much better. What they made wasn't Call of Duty. The only good parts of multiplayer was search and destroy and gunfight because the great movement wasn't even used. MW 2019 is going at the bottom of C tier because the campaign was good, the guns were good, and it had a couple fun modes. But Infinity Ward's vision was terrible. Warzone. Oh, the thing that actually saved Call of Duty by raising the player count by 242% to its highest counts the game had ever seen to that point. It ended up getting higher during Cold War because that game is better. This is what got most of my friends back into playing COD. The gunsmith was great for Warzone because the extra attachments were necessary because we had so many engagement possibilities in Battle Royale instead of multiplayer where I think the pick 10 is better. While I loved Verdansk, it was definitely lined up with MW 2019's motto to make the game easier for bad players by having so many buildings and crammed spaces to camp in, with only one way to enter. Rebirth Island and Fortune's Keep were really fun, and I think the Resurgence mode fits the Call of Duty player base really well. Now for a hot take that probably most will try to argue, Caldera was a good Battle Royale map. Many on console got a bad taste in their mouth because the map didn't work for them at launch. I agree that that's a very bad thing, but it has nothing to do with the actual map's quality. And to be fair, every new season of COD ends up having a bunch of new bugs and issues. But back onto Caldera, it added balloons, which was a huge upgrade to movement around the map and different ways to attack teams. There was more open spaces requiring players to move smarter and rotate better. Then buildings' power positions had multiple ways to be entered, making it more difficult to hold a position. Then buildings' power positions had multiple ways to be entered, making it more difficult to hold the position. Caldera's map required more skill than Verdansk. I understand many will disagree with my take because they played Verdansk more and have more memories on it, but hopefully you can understand my points. Every single map in Warzone 1 was fun to me because I got to enjoy the game with all of my friends and made a bunch of YouTube videos playing it. So I'm going to be putting it in A tier just below Black Ops 3 because the anti-cheat was horrible and I got taken out by hackers way too often, or else it would be an S tier. Black Ops 1. I saved the best for last. My favorite campaign of all time with some of the most memorable quotes in COD history with, "You can't kill me!" We had incredible characters with Alex Mason, Reznov making a return, Frank Woods, and Jason Hudson. It was mind-bending with us not knowing if we could trust our own character. Then the zombies had one of the best starter maps of all time with Keynote or Toten. We got a second map for free when completing the campaign or unlocking it via the computer and the starting menu with 5. And while that map wasn't as good as Kino, having JFK be a playable character was insanely cool. The multiplayer was amazing. I think it had the greatest collection of launch maps in all of Call of Duty. Nuketown, Firing Range, WMD, Jungle, and Summit are the maps everyone will think of right away. But what about Grid, Havana, Launch, Hanoi, Villa, and Radiation? These are considered mid-tier maps in Black Ops 1, but they would be the best maps in most Call of Duties. The killstreaks were amazing with the best chopper gunner ever, the creation of the Blackbird, and attack dogs. Also, the RCXD was so much fun to use with all the hidden paths you could take around the map. They just did little things that made the game more fun. And while the guns weren't balanced perfectly with ARs being the best easily, the lack of strict skill-based matchmaking meant you could run around with ballistic knives and tomahawks only and still have fun. This is when people who were bad at the game knew they were bad, but played because it was fun for them and they wanted to get better. This was the peak of classic Call of Duty, and it is going to be at the top of S tier as the best Call of Duty ever. Let me know what is one change you'd make to this tier list. And if you want to know the community's rankings of every Call of Duty from worst to best instead of mine, check this video out, where I had over 500,000 votes to determine your guys' overall feelings on Call of Duty. I'll catch you next time. Peace.